I'm excited about what I'm going to talk about today because I'm thinking that perhaps it'll make sense to the other episodes I've had or hopefully you've listened to. So today I'm going to talk about encounters versus experience. And our approach to this is not something that, of course, I believe you've heard other people talk about this and have other words for saying it and perhaps even better words, but I'm going to use my words and it makes sense for me and hopefully you can connect with it. So I'm going to talk and we'll see how it goes. And yeah, let me know if it makes sense to you. But our approach to thought, let's dive right into it, is built on our past encounters. That meaning that what you have experienced in life creates kind of a narrative of how you view the world, and it's built on past encounters. Our language and terms we use in our thinking is built from the culture and environment we grow up in, but the instrument we use is our own. And of course, the language, terms, culture, we've dealt a little bit about that, environment. And our instruments is our own. And that's also inspired by George Herbert Mead. And he talks about me, myself, and I, and how to divide our experience in life as an individual. And what I want to focus on is that we have an instrument that is ours. The way we view the world, it is affected by the outside world, but we have our own being. And I'm using the phrase instrument in how we, or a tool in how we understand and we think. So to continue a little bit on here, I use the word encounter, and because it's more, it separates itself. Well, I'll try to. It'll make sense, but and probably, but I use the word encounter because our experiences are controlled by more than our encounters. So I just want to divide the two. So by experiences, what we experience is something else sometimes to what we encounter. A friend told me that if you have a fear for something, the fear is real in itself. So the experience is real, but some other person might not experience fear in that moment. So the experience are different from what we encounter. So this fear is based on something. So by experiences, we implement our thoughts, our emotions, our pasts, or even also our well-being to the equation. I remember a time back I had immense back pain, and I used so much energy to just come through the day that how I filtered and experienced my everyday was not, well, it was just different. It's because I used so much of myself to just be normal. So I would experience probably high noises differently, or if the children were arguing, my experience of that became perhaps something different than what it is if I'm just having a normal day. But an example would be if someone gave you some advice, like a friend or an older person would give you advice, and because of whatever state you're in, you could not receive it or understand it. You just couldn't. You couldn't connect with the words he said or she said. But perhaps later in life, slowly the advice would come back to you, and or or perhaps then someone else said the same words. It just connected with you. So where I am at really is important in how I receive what I hear. So we live and act affected by our experiences. What you have understood, how your friends have acted, how if you've been bullied or if everybody was all nice to you, what environment you were in. We live and we act affected by these things. And our experiences kind of becomes our truth. I remember a woman told the story that when she was young, uh, a girl would say something about her body, and even up to her adulthood, it affected her view of herself. So, just using that as an example, I just want to light up the fact that we are affected by our experiences, and our experiences kind of becomes our truths. Now, the reason for separating the two is our unavoidable ability to misjudge or to misunderstand signals from the outside world, meaning that someone could give you a compliment and you might read it as a critique because your experience has kind of affected you to have a negative view of yourself, for example. And this is how we kind of go through life. Some people have never had issues like that, and they will hear a compliment and say, "Oh, thank you." So it's easy to accept. So just this is just to talk about how our experiences affects the way we see the world. And like in a classroom, a student may have thought that he or she understood what the teacher said, that how the teacher said it, and they would have like an experience with what he said or she said. So the teacher could have given a right lesson or given an answer. It may not have been received in the way the teacher intended, because the knowledge or the background of a child listening will be affected by what it thinks or she or he thinks. And so if you think you understand something and you hear something, you have the ability to have an experience that might not even be correct. So that's kind of, you have in theory of communication, you have, you know, the noise or disturbance between A and B when something is information is given. So this information can be skewed, misunderstood. That's why I want to have a episode about about experience and encounters. So the noise or disturbance in life is therefore can be our culture, past experiences, prejudice, and just basically our worldviews. We encounter one thing, but we have the ability to experience something other. The reason we may do this and live like this is because of cause and effect. And the cause then, it might have been an outer impact. And this outer impact may or may not have been melted with the inside. So our worldview, that's what I'm talking about here. We must separate the encounter from the experience. So if we live by our experience alone and do not weigh it with the meeting of transparent and outer truth, we might end up in a fault. We have misunderstood what took place, what happened. So we really have to be sincerely transparent with ourselves to divide what actually happened and what did I experience. So to jump to conclusions and build your life upon a perceived truth, it just may end up badly. An individual could then establish a complete worldview on information that has limited truth to it. So if a parent that was not in a good mental state could pronounce bad words on their children, and that would impact the child's worldview or self-view. So these things happen all the time. And if we allow ourselves to make a worldview based on outer effects or impacts, it is important that we are transparent and understand what happened so that we can be the best version of ourselves we can. Because these encounters, or if you say truths, has been melted with individual meaning, because we create meaning of what we experience. So like an individual's experience truth based on worldview cannot operate as objective truth. So what I'm saying is that what we have experienced, what we have, what's melted to our personality and our instrument cannot be used as objective truth. When we then come to the power of ideas that somehow end up with ideologies, they very often can uphold truth claims, but they cannot be objective. It's important to maintain transparency for it to be held as objective as possible. The thing is that many environments or religions are based on people's worldviews and not necessarily objective truth. And what we just have to be as honest and transparent as possible so that we can uphold or obtain the purest truth we possibly can. So to follow an experienced truth by someone else in itself will limit your ability to obtain this purest truth possible. So it is our responsibility as individuals to check everything so that we don't find ourselves ignorant. So, and I know in life we have to kind of accept being ignorant in areas. We cannot expect to be experts in every field. We must choose what we allow to have in our lives, and we must endeavor to chase what holds an absolute truth. So, if truth of life and meaning is the main object of our life, we just got to start with the building blocks for life. And we got to see the costs and effects of life and of meaning. So, if we have a worldview that is disconnected with our with outside truth or objective truth, we at best we do not know it yet, and at worst we decide to delude truth. If individual truth does not coincide with what we encounter in the human experience, it cannot maintain its objectivity. It cannot therefore obtain the quality of upholding a truth claim. So what I've been trying to say here is that we got to separate encounters with experience, because we experience something and it becomes our worldview, and it becomes kind of our truths and how we see the truth, how we see the world. I mean, and we encounter different things. So if we experience something than what we encounter, then we have to admit that the, we might not always have the obtainability to understand or to know what is absolute truth. Our job is to do the best that we can with what we have and what we have encountered, and not try to melt our perhaps our baggage from our past or incorrect teachings or what we have learned in life. And we have to look at the main object. What is the truth? What what is true? Because in so many areas in life and in our surroundings and environment, our society, there's so many experiences that we've had. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all these things are true. So to be able to separate the two, it is important that we lift up what we have encountered, like in a testimony in court, that the witness tells exactly what he or she saw, and not try to put meaning into it, because that is not important. The important thing is what happened. If we separate the things, then we can allow ourselves to go further in depth of what is true. Of course. So now I've used a lot of words to try to explain these things or try to share my thoughts around these things, but I hope it makes sense to you, because if we have to admit to ourselves that we might not have understood things the right way. We have to allow ourselves to have misjudged or misunderstood, because we know in simple things that are not important to us, that doesn't change our worldview, that if we have done that in small things, perhaps we also have done that in bigger things that can sometimes even be life altering. So by trying to talk a little bit about that is perhaps allowing myself to be vulnerable to have misjudged and misunderstood things, and also be aware that there is an element of influence of myself and my past that I do have to call my experience, but is not necessarily based on the accuracy of the encounters I have had. So by separating the two and talking a little bit about these two, then I'm able to just be aware that that is something in life. And of course, this is in small things like examples we've used, but it can be on an individual aspect, but also on a societal aspect, if we are willing to be humble enough to not necessarily say that we're right about everything. So I think I'll just stop there, and if it makes sense to you, just let me know. Tell me what you think, and I hope you'll just have an awesome day. Okay, goodbye.